In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here at the SHR Media Network studios, where they indeed be sumptuous palatial. And I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, less than 2 miles away from the Bill Mill, the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Capitol building in Sacramento, Fornicalia, at 10th and L Street. Truly the locus of evil on the entire planet. You got a belly up to the bar? We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back tonight. Fluffy is going to be your bartender. He pours with the best of them. And the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted to my left, your right, which indicates that you can listen to the show and chat at shrmedia.com. And courtesy of Big Sarge, you can watch the show on the Redcon One Media Facebook page and also the SHR Media Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. 3 glorious ways in which to process the information that I have for you tonight. And I can tell you right now, the bulk of the show is probably going to be taken up with an SHR Media special report. But before I do that, I got to tell you that we don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, it is Tuesday night. It is March 19th, the year of our Lord 2019, and welcome to everybody. Welcome to the truckers that are listening right now, live and in podcast. Welcome to everybody that's listening now, live and in podcast. Welcome to everybody at Redcon One Media. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching on the SHR Media YouTube channel, and thanks for watching on the SHR Media Facebook page. Now that I've said that, I think it's time to crank up my headphones. There we go. Okay, much better. Now I can hear myself. What you may or may not know is that BZ, for many, many years, well, now I'm mostly deaf, and I got that way for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is I come from the land of plenty. I feel like singing. No, I'm not going to go there. I come from a background in radio, and I come from a background in radio in the 70s where you played music and you had JBL L100 Century Series speakers up in the corners of the studio, and whenever you played Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath or Dust or anything like that, or Yes, you cranked those bad boys up, and you also had headphones on. So in my Callow Ute, I primarily went to a lot of concerts. It was nothing for BZ to stand in front of the stacks at a Black Sabbath concert or at a Led Zeppelin concert. Saw Led Zeppelin 4 or 5 times. Went to see AC/DC Did not go to the Rolling Stones. I wasn't particularly a Rolling Stones fan, and though I was a California man, I didn't necessarily get all wrapped up about the Grateful Dead either. The Grateful Dead, to me, was sort of meh. Not really particularly interested in that, which is kind of strange. I was a great fan of what people would call prog rock or progressive rock. Some of my favorites were Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Yes, topographic maps of topographic oceans. And one that a lot of people don't know of. Two that a lot of people don't know of. King Crimson and Gentle Giant. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I also used to record music. And I was put on a plane, installed within a thin aluminum tube, shot over to Glasgow, Scotland, where I helped record and got absolutely no credit whatsoever for helping to record the Status Quo live album. It is at that time when I met Bon Scott, the original singer from AC/DC, before his untimely death. And I also met the bass player for Black Sabbath, Geezer Butler, who is taller than I am, and Bon Scott, who was shorter than I am, and these days is definitely much shorter than I am. Then I progressed through a career that involved law enforcement. I think it's actually time to turn up my headphones even a little bit more. There we go. And I became range master for a 2,000-plus officer department, and I was in charge of everything that went boom and bang. And it was not uncommon to spend a day or more, the entire day, on the range. And that's just, it's all cumulative. I have tinnitus like no one's business. It never stops. The bells and klaxons are going off inside the Mark I Model 1 Brainulus 24/7. So just when I can't hear shit, I've also got tinnitus. It's sort of the best of all possible worlds. What could possibly go wrong with that? So thanks to everybody for being here tonight. Grandly appreciate it. There may or may not, I've attempted to arrange for a special guest tonight who may or may not appear and who may or may not have made an appearance last week. In the chat room, welcome to the Alaskan, welcome to Mary Brockman, and like I say, welcome to everybody that is in Redcon 1. And I get a lot of hits in podcasts, so for the folks that I know, it's a late-night show. It's 11, what would that be, about 11:08, 11:09 right now on the far East Coast, and it's about 8:09 right now on the left coast. And it's 1773 and 17.723.4, subcluster 3, paragraph 4, indent in Bolivian time. And I've never understood Bolivian time, which is a weird thing just to say in and of itself. I'm going to try to get into some happy stories tonight. If I don't, because of the SHR Media Special Report, get into happy stories, they will definitely be here on... Oh, and that makes me remember. They'll definitely be here next time around, next Thursday. To my knowledge, there will be a chat show tomorrow night with Sackhead's Clint. I am hoping for an unspecified third member. I'm trying to write a contract even as we speak, because we work on contracts around here, as you well know. Mine is completely shameless. And then Thursday night, for the folks at Redcon 1, every once in a while I jump the tracks and we go into kind of like the strange and odd occurrences, which could and does usually include things like the paranormal, UFOs, things that are unexplained, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. People either love the shows or they hate the shows. I kind of like them because I've got a guy that I invite on the show, and he's going to be here Thursday for the first time for Redcon 1 listeners. And before you dismiss him and go, that's not my stuff, I'm only about politics, I would submit, give the dude a listen. The guy's name is Alan Thomas. He has had an amazing life. Just his life story is astounding. And I'm going to have him give sort of a recap because a lot of the folks in Redcon 1 have not heard him before. He can tell a great story. He's extremely knowledgeable. If you can think of anything weird, bizarre, odd, etc., that has occurred, it's generally occurred to him. He has and I cannot think of the name, it's a disease where essentially you're in pain all the time. He got it because of a surgery that went awry. In the process of doing that, he died on the table twice. He's had a heart attack. His life is, you could either say his life is terrifically messed up, or if you were to ask him, he would tell you that, as far as he's concerned, his life is a blessing. I should have known that things were going to be just a little odd when the first time ever I had him on the show, I had him all scheduled, and I had met him when I met he and Jeffrey Gonzalez in Sacramento at a paranormal type conference get-together thing. And in the process of meeting these two guys, I determined that Alan Thomas is a fabulous guy, made contact with him and asked him on the show. So the first time he was going to be on the show, guess what? He didn't show up. And you know, if you're in radio, you always want to make sure that you have a plan B. For example, if everything turns to crap tonight, I always have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. In other words, never be caught with your pants down. Number one, it's really airy. And number two, it makes you look silly, stupid, and fattening. Always have more material than you can use just in case something like that happens. And if you have your own radio show or you work for Redcon 1 or you work for SHR, you know, yeah, things frequently go sideways. Well, that particular night, Alan Thomas didn't show up. Now, I tried calling him, called him a bunch of times, never showed up. And I thought, oh, this does not bode well. Here's this guy. I really wanted to have him on the show because I found him extremely interesting. And the first thing right out of the box, this guy stiffs me. And initially, because you have to put on a happy face. Well, I wasn't happy that night. And maybe some of the people could tell, but I had to grit my teeth. Little flecks of enamel came off my teeth, and I had a lot of material to keep going. And I buzzed through the rest of the show. But at the conclusion of the show, let's just say I was unhappy. Particularly because this is the first time this guy has ever allegedly going to be on. And right out of the box, he fronts me off. At the conclusion of the show, I was pissed. I have to admit it. This is not a good thing to say or be. I was really pissed because, quite frankly, when people do that, they make you look stupid. And I don't like that. Nobody likes to be made to look stupid. Imagine my chagrin when I was able to contact him the day after, and I said to myself, BZ, temper, namaste, kalmate. Don't do or say what you initially wanted to do or say back on that original Tuesday. Wouldn't be good, wouldn't be prudent. Luckily, I listened to myself that time, although I frequently do not. Called him up, was able to get in touch with him, and he said, and this is the way Alan Thomas is, he says, I really, really, really apologize for not being on your show. I feel so bad. And I was hoping he was going to give some kind of a, like the dog ate my homework, or I had to clean the fish tank, or I had to balance my checkbook. Who balances a checkbook today? Says a lot about me. But he said, I feel so bad. I had a heart attack and I had to go to the hospital. So I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to be on your show, but I'll do it the next time. Next time up, I'll do it. That's the kind of guy Alan Thomas is. He's going to be here this coming Thursday. Enough about Alan Thomas. Now, next Tuesday, also for Redcon 1 listeners, people have heard him here before. I just got through communicating with Ken McClinton, and he has his own radio show called From the Exceptional Conservative Network, and he's going to be on Tuesday. And Ken is a superior dude. I met him at the 2017 Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, where we were there for about a week during the entire Freedom Fest itself. Got to meet Ken. Now he reciprocated. I'm on his show on Mondays when technology works. Yeah, well, we know all about technology and BZ, do we not? So Ken is going to be here on Tuesday, next Tuesday. What I'd like to do is, with luck he's feeling better, next Thursday I would like to have Professor Michael Jones on to explain the Constitution in general, to introduce him to the Redcon One Media Network audience, and to weigh in with regards to the Electoral College, increasing SCOTUS numbers, court packing, etc., all the things that have been going on these days. Oh, man. Oh, and welcome to Dave Milner and one viewer as well. So great to see everybody here. And again, thank you very much, very kindly, to Big Sarge at Redcon One Media for allowing me to simulcast on his media network. I greatly appreciate that. Without further ado, as long as I can get one. Last week, this is weird, or maybe not so weird. Last week, like I say, always have more material. Always have more material. I had 56 tabs up on my Confuser right in front of me. I had so much stuff last week, and you just have to go into that stuff and just clean it out. So tonight, it's going to be pretty much a solo kind of show with one theme, and we're going to start it in this fashion.
This is an SHR Media Network special report.
And tonight it's going to be about essentially the dangerous dumpster fire that is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She has stepped off from essentially nothingness to being, in many ways, a lot of people could say that she's the new leader of the Democrat Party. Now, Nancy Pelosi would certainly disagree with me on that, but we've learned a number of things in the past 3 months, and I have concluded, quite frankly, of course, that she is, in fact, a dumpster fire. Now, of all the things that you can say about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I may refer to her by AOC. Some people say don't do that, but I'm sort of a verbal, ham-handed, if I can make things easier, I'm going to do it. One of the things that you can say about AOC is that she's stupid, right? Or is she? Well, okay. I can hear everybody now, oh no, BZ, how can you say that? You've previously stated that and I've written this in social media, I've previously stated and written that her IQ is essentially on par with that of a potted ficus. Well, yes it is. She is ill-educated, she's ignorant, she's unenlightened, in my opinion, and truly she is a very sad product of New York public schools that fail to teach anything of significance about history. That's certainly true. And everybody these days appears to have what I call historical Alzheimer's. There was a quote by a guy named George Santayana, and his quote is extremely important right then and right now, and particularly applicable with regard to the Democrat Party. Those who do not remember the past are doomed to repeat it. Yet she isn't. Completely stupid, that is, unless...
Running for Congress was never in the plan. It was never in the cards.
Okay, stop right there. That in and of itself is extremely salient. If you roll with me tonight, you'll understand why that first sentence right there is incredibly important.
Something that I thought I'd be able to do. And if we work our butts off to make sure that we take back all three chambers of Congress, all three chambers of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House in 2020, we can't start working in 2020.
I can't let you go! inaugurated January 3rd, January 4th. We're signing healthcare. We're signing this.
But they don't actually inaugurate Congress people. They swear them in.
And then she went on to say that she was going to get inaugurated on the 3rd and then start signing bills on the 4th. Right. You don't get inaugurated and you don't sign bills. Only the president will sign the bills that you present to him.
But she appears to have her political colors mixed up.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be hopping on here, Senator Sanders' account, and we're here in Kansas City to rally for Brent Welder. We're going to flip this seat red in November.
Yep, we're going to flip it red.
I ran because I felt like we could do better and that we could be better as a country. And I looked around. Yeah.
You know, the benefit of capitalism is that you engage in voluntary trade. It is the system that, unlike all the others, has lifted more people out of poverty over the course of human history than any other system.
Well, so I think that those things that you talk about, that you discuss, are part of the course of human evolution.
Ocasio-Cortez says she can't afford to move to Washington. She can't make a deposit on an apartment in D.C.
Okay, stop right there. I have to stop this because in the chat over at shrmedia.com, you want to go into the chat room that I monitor, that's shrmedia.com. Dave Milner in chat said, I'm with Ralph Chittum's, though. This woman is not as stupid as all the memes say. Hold that thought for tonight.
D.C. until she gets her first paycheck. Members of Congress earn a solid $174,000 a year.
Connected most to an electorate when they were fighting for these seats, when they got these seats, when they were campaigning most, when we had more of an American middle class. But that upper middle class doesn't exist anymore.
But when you look at what she just said, that the upper middle class is gone, look at this. In 1979, it was at 12.9%, if we could put up the graphic. And today, the middle class has grown, as you can see, more than double that number from that many years ago.
29.4%.
But I also think that what people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, I think what I meant is like the settlements that are
the occupation of Palestine
increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing.
Oh, Alaskan in chat, hold that thought. Hold that thought, mister.
Difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also just, I am not the expert on geopolitics.
No, you're not.
You used the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
Crickets. Yeah, okay. I'll tell you what she is, though. She is calculated and she is orchestrated. I think she's a puppet, but she doesn't believe it. And like I say, roll with me tonight. We've just started with regard to the puppet aspect. She's still a dangerous, dangerous dumpster fire, no matter how you cut it. Roll with me for a minute. She truly is a democratic socialist, and she makes no bones about it. There is, in fact, a Democratic Socialist Party. She's one of the first two ever Democratic Socialists in Congress. The other one is, imagine this, another freshman female, Rashida Tlaib out of Michigan, a Muslim. AOC just has no idea of what that really means, though, to be a Democratic Socialist. To her, I think it's like sort of a cool word that kind of just rolls off the mouth with some kind of real sort of edgy intrigue.
Let me tell you something, Alexandria. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I want to tell you something. El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona. My name is Jose. I'm 21 years old. I am Samuel Machado. I'm 22 years old. I fled real socialism. Me and my family fled real socialism. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Alexia Ocasio-Cortez. You're a liar. You are a liar. You don't know what you're talking about. You're clueless. You have never gone through socialism, so you preach it like you do. America will never be a socialist country. America will never be a socialist country. A lot of people think socialism, it's all about equality and free stuff.
Yes.
What socialism is really about, it's starvation. People dying from lack of medicine. And let me tell you, I don't want the U.S. being socialist. Why? Because my mom was almost killed by the socialist government because she was reporting all the human rights violations. Guys with guns went to my house, put a gun on my head and my little brother's head. Just for that, she almost got
Government had guns. Do you think they have guns?
killed and all my family with it. I don't want the US to be socialist. My grandfather had leukemia. We had to go to the other side of the border, to Colombia, to get our medicine. Single-payer healthcare systems don't work. If you're gonna wait for the government to pay up for your surgeries, you're gonna die waiting on a bed. In the US, you're free, you can say whatever you want, and nobody's going to attack you for it. I am so happy for being here because now I'm safe, and I feel free, and I feel protected because we are in a free society. Back in 2007, the government blackmailed my family over a land that was, by law, ours. We actually had to pay them off a huge amount of money just
to keep your property.
Just for them not to take it away from us. And it was actually ours, so I don't want that in America, ever. Let me tell you something, Alexandria. You're a liar. You have never been through socialism in your life for you to be preaching it the way you're doing it. El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona.
Socialism doesn't work. Never has and never will. But it turns out that AOC's deal is climate change or global warming or whatever phrase is most convenient at the time that it's spoken, in order to conform to the, seasons. We actually have seasons. Here's a strange notation about that, and I know I got about 3 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. Here's a strange notation about that. More scientists now are beginning to indicate that, as we already intuited, weather tends to be cyclical. Imagine that. And that we are, in fact, heading towards a cooling stage rather than a warming stage because of the sun and the solar flares that are not occurring with the regularity that apparently they used to. But AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she is part of what I call the religious left, where faith, hallelujah, brother and sister, or whatever pronoun you're going to use, faith is required to believe the world is falling apart at our feet and in the skies. So I believe I have enough time to start this, because if you don't remember, I'd like to refresh your memory that the world is going to end in 12 years.
The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And
Right.
your biggest issue is your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And this is the war. This is our World War II.
Okay, do you understand what she just did there? What she did is conflate emotions with logic and facts and essentially say how we pay for it or where we get the money is immaterial. We just have to act. We just have to emote.
I think that the part of it that is generational is that millennials and people and Gen Z and all these folks that come after us are looking up, and we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And this is the war. This is our World War II. And I think for younger people, we're looking at this and we're like, how are we saying let's take it easy when 3,000 Americans died last year? How are we saying let's take it easy when the nth person has just...
What? Did you hear what she said? 3,000 Americans died last year. Really? Is that all? 3,000 Americans died last year. And she doesn't link that to a thought. Okay. All right. I think it's time to do this. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to me, the Bloviating Zeppelin, live and direct right here at the SHR Media Studios, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. I either call it Fornicalia because it screws over everything in which it comes in contact, or if I say California, just remember that in the visual or when I write that, I'm talking about the letter K in instead of the letter C. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic, concealed carry, and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, courtesy of the SHR Media Network And thanks to Big Sarge of Redcon One Media for allowing me to simulcast on his network as well. For those of you listening and watching, really appreciate your presence here. Please come back. You are always welcome here in the Saloon. Tonight, it is an SHR Media special report, and it's about the terribly dangerous dumpster fire that is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I was in the middle of playing a series of audio cuts where she says essentially, I'm sorry, we only have another dozen more years before we're all going to... Well, I'm not sure what's going to happen. She didn't say exactly what's going to happen.
Died from our cruel and unjust criminal justice system. How are we saying take it easy when the America that we're living in today is so dystopian, with people sleeping in their cars so that they can work a second job without health care?
Who put them there?
And we're told to settle down. It's a fun...
Okay, stop here just for a second. I don't know if you guys, if you follow my Twitter feed. You can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. This evening, before the show, I put a documentary in there from KOMO TV in Seattle. It's a 1-hour documentary. It's about how Seattle is coming apart and all what I call the leftist urban rat cages. What you say about Seattle is easily said about all the urban rat cages around the United Snakes of America. So how did they get there? AOC? Leftists made it that way.
Separation between, that fierce urgency of now, the why we can't wait that King spoke of, that at some point these chronic realities do reach a breaking point. And I think for our generation, it's reached that. And I wish I didn't have to be, doing every post, but sometimes I just feel like people aren't being held accountable. And until...
You're right. In the urban rat cages, they're not being held accountable. The mayors are not being held accountable. The people in charge, the leftists, are not being held accountable. You're right about that one.
We all start pitching in and holding people accountable. I'm just going to let them have it.
It's going to break down. Is it in 2040? It's just kind of slightly, so they don't actually. It's sort of slightly over the horizon, or it's just on the horizon. So we kind of.
Okay, enough about you. I'm not interested in listening to British guys. Funny thing is, let's see. Wasn't AOC also the individual who says that? Oh, that's right. We need a 70% marginal tax rate.
Three Wall Street heavyweights took us beyond the headlines. Here's what they think everyone needs to understand about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's proposed 70% marginal tax on income above $10 million.
And everybody's talking about AOC's proposed 70% marginal tax rate. What do you think are the economic implications of that?
Well, look, it's ultimately going to get fought. The marginal rate has to go to start at $253,000, $350,000, whatever the sloganeering is. In order to get any money out of the U.S. population, the marginal rate always ends up being debated right around $250,000, $300,000. So, look, if you impose a 70% tax rate on that type of wage earner, you're going to crush the economy.
But at $10 million?
It's never. There's no money there. There's no. It's. Maybe we should
listen to what he says. There's no there.
99% at 10 million. I don't know. There's no money. There's no policy there. It's a slow. So it's going to be decided at the 250 to 350 rate. That'll be the only decision will be where in that band you put extremely high marginal rates, because that's where the money is. And we might as well talk about that early.
And there's been a lot of debate about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's proposed 70% tax on all income above $10 million.
Right.
What do you think are the economic implications of something like that?
Okay, this is another guy, another millionaire who creates jobs.
Well, we've lived in these high tax regimes before.
This guy named Scott Minerd of Guggenheim Partners.
Go back into the 1930s, even the 1960s, we had very high marginal tax rates. when we cut tax rates in the 1980s, we had a huge productivity boom. And the reason for that is that people who were wealthy spent a lot of time sheltering their income.
Stop right there. Stop right there. That's exactly what Dave Milner just said in chat. Guess how many people will actually pay that tax? If you've got over $10 million, you can afford mucho good accountants. And here's the other thing about tax shelters. If you didn't want the tax shelters, D.C. would change them, would they not? But they're not going to, because the D.C. politicians themselves are millionaires, and why do you want to shut the door on that?
And they drove investment into marginally less productive assets than they would if they just had free flexibility to put the money where they wanted to. So, you know, the frightening thing about high marginal tax rates is that it leads us into a low productivity economy. And we have a lot of headwinds already in this country. For instance, the growth in the working age population is declining dramatically. If you layer in on top of that high marginal tax rates, you could actually build an economy that has zero growth potential. And so I think...
Stop. Like Japan.
Policymakers have to be very careful when looking at putting high marginal tax rates on the rich. And when you look at the revenue attached to it, if the Washington Post is right, even let's assume that nobody makes a portfolio adjustment and they pay their marginal taxes, it's about $70 billion a year. In an economy that's running $1 trillion deficit, I think we should probably have lower hanging fruit to find ways to address the real issues that are being brought up by some people in Washington, like AOC or Bernie Sanders. There are real issues to be addressed, but I think that we need to get more private sector incentive to address the issues rather than to necessarily weigh the private sector down with high taxation.
Bob, there's suddenly a lot of talk about a 70% marginal tax rate on incomes of 10 million or more in the United States.
Okay,
a couple of very smart people.
This is another
call
guy.
That a disaster and scary. Is that something we should actually be worried about?
Well, I don't think it would be good, but mostly I don't think it would solve any.
This is a guy named Bob Prince of Bridgewater Associates.
Problems. I mean, the reason that that's emerging as a topic is because of populism, income inequality, and though populism and income inequality are really rooted in much deeper issues that tax rate, a 70% tax rate, is not going to address. You really need to have jobs and incomes in the parts of the country that have been gutted by one force or another, and so largely the forces of populism are much more powerful. They're not going to be really addressed by that kind of a shift in taxes. I think the one thing that it would do is it'd help with the deficit.
Okay, so let's shift just a bit, shift gears, and let's talk about that wonderful Green New Deal, right? That lovely GND, which in truth was actually a green new abortion on toast when one began to actually read what was in that thing. Among the most prominent, the deal calls for meeting 100% of the power demand in the United States through clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources. The ultimate goal is to stop using fossil fuels entirely, Ocasio-Cortez's office told NPR, National Public Radio, as well as to transition away from nuclear energy and more. I mean, it was also like super astounding and like totally rad, and like her own team took down her original post the very next day after she put out the Green New Deal. Wait, why is that? For one thing, you may not have noticed, the original language in the day she kicked that out was this. According to an initial outline of the measure, the freshman Democrat and Senator Edward Markey, Democrat of Massachusetts, of course, Massachusetts, there's a reason they're called massholes, said they, quote, set a goal to get to net zero rather than zero emissions in 10 years because we aren't sure that we'll be able to fully get rid of farting cows and airplanes that fast. they actually let you see into their brains just for a second. They worry about farting cows and airplanes. So what happened is the verbiage was subsequently shifted. Most rapidamente, the language was then changed from emissions from cows, because of course we all know you would not want to offend Cowpack 2019, and all this in just 3 months. But wait, what's actually in the Green New Deal? What are the particulars in that? Well, the bill calls for a 10-year national mobilization towards accomplishing a series of goals that the resolution lays out itself. And like I indicated, it calls for meeting 100% of the power demand in the United States through cheap, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources. And here's a few more bullet points that she kind of tended to leave out, but you're going to hear about them now. Ban affordable energy. The GND calls for the elimination of fossil fuel energy production, which is the absolute fucking lifeblood of American industry and life, which includes not only oil, of course, but that includes natural gas, one of the cheapest sources of American energy, and one of the reasons the United States has been able to lead the world in carbon emissions reductions. She's going to eliminate nuclear energy. That GND also calls for eliminating all nuclear power, one of the only productive and somewhat affordable clean energy sources available to us in 11 years. Okay, what would that do? That would purge about 20% of American energy generation so that you can have the pleasure of relying on intermittent wind for your energy needs. Eliminate 90% of cars. Now, to be fair, under the GND, everybody's going to need to retrofit their cars. Remember this, you can remember the cartoon. You're going to have to retrofit your car with these Flintstone-style little footholes or pedals for cycling, okay? And the authors say the GND is going to replace every combustion engine vehicle. What they mean is internal combustion engine vehicle. Trucks, airplanes, boats, 99% of cars within 10 years. Charging stations for electric vehicles are going to be, this is a quote, they're going to be built everywhere. Though how power plants are going to provide that energy needed to charge them is a big damn mystery. They're also going to gut and rebuild every home, every building in the United States of America. Markey and Cortez want to retrofit every building in America with state-of-the-art energy efficiency. Every building in America. That includes every home, every factory, every apartment building, which will all need, just to start, to have their entire working heating and cooling HVAC systems ripped out by the guts and replaced with whatever technology Democrats are going to themselves invent in their committee hearings, I guess. We're going to eliminate air travel. We're thinking about going back to the SST, but before we do that, we're going to eliminate air travel wholesale. Now, the GND calls for building out high-speed rail at a scale where air travel stops becoming necessary. Think of that. How glorious would it be to be in a high-speed train in a tube in the ocean when you want to get from the United States to Europe? That'd be a little expensive. Well, how are we going to get over there? Where are we going to be in a boat? Are we going to be in a ship? Because we can't fly. All right. Hey, Hawaii and relying on tourists, good luck with you, or any other island. California, for example, I'm going to use California as an example. California with a K. We are already $100 billion in debt. And it's one of the state of California's biggest fiscal disasters ever. Amtrak runs billions of dollars in the red, though we'll see trains that run on fossil fuels will also be phased out. So imagine growing that business model out to every state in America. Okay, name I know you can do this. I have faith in you, Redcon One Media listeners and SHR Media listeners. Name for me one passenger rail system on the planet that makes money. There is no such thing. You would be correct. None exists. Not even in perfect Europe. All of the rail systems in Europe and around the globe are financed by the various governments, and they all take a loss. You're going to get a government guaranteed job, too. The bill promises the United States government is going to provide every single American with a job that includes a, quote, this is a quote, a family-sustaining wage, family and medical leave, vacations, and a pension. You can imagine that those left in the private sector are going to be funding these through some unspecified kind of massive taxation. But look on the bright side, okay? When you're foraging for food out there in the wilderness, your savings are going to be worthless. You're going to be having a free education for life. The GND promises free college or trade schools for every American. You're going to be on the greatest diet you can possibly think of. It promises the government is going to provide healthy food to every American because there are no beans or lettuce in your local supermarket, I guess. How sad is that? You're going to be given a house. You're going to be given a house. The GND promises the government is going to provide, this is a quote, safe, affordable, adequate housing for every American citizen. I call dibs on an affordable Adams Morgan townhouse. Thank you, AOC. Appreciate that. Free money. Free money. The GND aims to provide, and I am not making this crap up, economic security for those who are, again, a direct quote, unwilling or unable to work. Unable, okay, I get that. Unwilling, throw money at them. Just to reiterate, if you're unwilling to work, the rest of us are going to have your back on that too. Won't you? I will. You will. I'm sure we all will. Won't we? Oh, there's a bonus. There's a bonus. Why wouldn't there be a bonus? We're going to ban meat. AOC says that we can't get zero emissions in 10 years because we're not going to be able to get rid of those stupid farting cows and airplanes that fast. So the only way to get rid of the farting cows is to make sure that we get rid of beef. Now, I sometimes disagree with what Ben Shapiro says, but I like the way he says things, and you have to agree that Ben Shapiro is one of the fastest, most facile minds on the planet.
We'll get to Virginia in just a second. Don't worry, I'll give you all the updates. But just recently, breaking news, she has released a brand new plan, a Green New Deal plan that changes America forever.
Yes, it
because
does.
she's a fresh face. So fresh, so face.
So face.
Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez got in a Twitter fight with my business partner, Jeremy Boring, last night. Jeremy made the point on Twitter that I had made yesterday on the show because we steal from each other on a routine basis. That's why we make great business partners. He made the point that she is, in fact, not a victim, while she has been claiming to be a victim and cheering herself for being a woman in Congress. And she tweeted something back about how the fact that she is the only 29-year-old bartender in Congress means that Congress is just not representative. Which makes no sense at all, by the way, because if we were just to take a demographic breakdown out of like 500 people, how many are 29-year-old bartenders?
Okay, remember what I said? Houseplant, potted ficus. Yeah, roll with that.
Maybe one out of 500 people across America. I don't think the demographics work out that way. Also, it doesn't make any sense to suggest that the American Congress is supposed to be broken down demographically akin to the American population. Because we have majoritarian voting in the United States. 53% of voters in the United States are women, which means that if women voted as a bloc, everyone in Congress would be a woman. So
hello? Intelligence? We're seeking AOC. Oh, but she's not here.
So that's not how voting works. That's not how representation works. But AOC doesn't know things. But she has great fashion sense, and she can make stuff in an instant pot, and she's sassy. So that's all that counts.
She's sassy.
And now, she has a brilliant new Green New Deal plan. It is so brilliant that even people on the left are laughing at it today because it's just absurd. So she has now released her Green New Deal plan. Here's the overview. I love it so much. It's so great because This is the future, guys. And if you don't embrace the future, it's because you're afraid of the future. Like, unbelievable. You're unbelievably afraid of the future. Like, if people would just think, like, about 20 years, like, down the line, then they would know that, like, this is what we have to, like, do. Yeah. Anyway, here is what she says. Quote, "We will begin work immediately on Green New Deal bills to put the nuts and bolts on the plan described in this resolution. Important to say, so someone else can't claim this mantle." So it says that
like
right at the top of the overview. So that's pretty great. Lachlan Markey over at, I'm trying to remember which publication he's with right now. He has this story. It says, "This is a massive transformation of our society with clear goals and a timeline. The Green New Deal resolution, a 10-year plan to mobilize every aspect of American society at a scale not seen since World War II to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions and create economic prosperity for all. It will move America to 100% clean and renewable energy." She's saying this over 10 years. "Create millions of family-supporting wage union jobs, ensure a just transition for all communities and workers to ensure economic security for people and communities that have historically relied on fossil fuel industries." You mean like all of the industries in the United States?
Yes.
Literally all of them? It says, "Ensure justice and equity for frontline communities."
By the way, just as an aside, how many people do you think would answer to you no, or I don't know, if you were to say, don't we need fossil fuels for plastics and rubber, and how many things in your world are made of plastics and rubber? And if you were to ask people, isn't oil in plastics and rubber? That no, come on, that's plastic.
Prioritizing investment, training, climate, and
pharmaceuticals,
community resiliency, economic and environmental benefits in these communities. Build on FDR's second Bill of Rights by guaranteeing a job with a family-sustaining wage, family and medical leave, vacations, and retirement security. So this is all part of her plan. Everyone in the United States is going to have a job guaranteed by the federal government. High-quality education, including higher education and trade schools, guaranteed by the federal government.
What does this sound to you? Does this sound like socialism? What's the next step in socialism? Riddle me that.
Healthy food, clean air and water, and access to nature. So I guess we're going to be busing people out to the forest. High-quality health care, guaranteed by the federal government. Safe, affordable, adequate housing, guaranteed by the federal government. An economic environment free of monopolies, and economic security for all who are unable or unwilling to work. Unwilling to work. Economic security for people who don't even want to work, who just want to sit around all day watching reruns of the Golden Girls.
That's what you got to love that. You got to love that.
During World War II, we took every male in the United States between the ages of 18 and 45, and we put them in barracks, and we had them live off rations because we were in the middle of a war. The economic growth that occurred in the aftermath of World War II was not caused by government expenditure. Government expenditures decreased after World War II. She says the interstate highway system has returned more than $6 in economic productivity for every $1 it cost. You know what would happen, by the way? Everybody always loves to talk about the interstate highway system. You know what would happen if there was no interstate highway system? Nothing. Really nothing. What I mean by that is that Route 66 already existed. All that would have happened is that states would have connected their highways. What do these people think, that the highways just would have ended at the state line, that there just would have been like a bridge and then nothing? They just would have said dead end at the end of the street? She says this is massively expanding existing and building new industries at a rapid pace, growing our economy. And then she says the Green New Deal has momentum. 92% of Democrats and 64% of Republicans support the Green New Deal, right? Because it doesn't mean anything.
The sad thing is, if that's the accurate percentile of Republicans, as I sit here right now, I wouldn't doubt it.
Until you said all this garbage. Now that support level is going to go down to 0. It gets better. There's a bunch of frequently asked questions here. And she says, why 100% clean and renewable and not just 100% renewable? Are you saying we won't transition off fossil fuels? Yes, we are calling for a full transition off fossil fuels and zero greenhouse gases. Anyone who has read the resolution sees that we spell this out through a plan that calls for eliminating greenhouse gas emissions from every sector of the economy. Simply banning fossil fuels immediately won't build the new economy to replace it. This is the plan to build that new economy and spells out how to do it technically. She says we set a goal to get to net zero rather than zero emissions in 10 years because we aren't sure that we'll be able to fully get rid of farting cows and airplanes that fast. Is she going to kill all the cows? Because that's sad. And she said she wants to get rid of airplanes and also farting cows. Is she going to give them all X-Lax? How's this going to work? She says, is nuclear a part of this? She says, no. There will be no nuclear energy. So only the most efficient source of energy known to man, nuclear power. No, we're not going to, and clean, by the way. We're not going to do any of that. So
that's right. If you remember, folks, by the way, France runs on about 90 to 95% nuclear power. and they've got a continuous power supply in that country. Much of Europe runs on nuclear power. Imagine that. We're going to be right back after this. We're going to take a break. Folks, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here from the SHR Media Network. If you're listening on Redcon 1, folks, make sure that you go and follow at Redcon 1 Media on Twitter. Follow them. And make sure that you click follow and like on the Redcon 1 Media Facebook page. And if you're in a nice, kindly mood, please do that to also the SHR Media Group Twitter page. Follow us there. And follow me at BZEP, at BZEP on Twitter, if you ever would so kindly. And give me 5. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to me. I am the bloviating Zeppelin. Right here, ensconced nicely in the BZ chair in the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Studios, 2 miles east of the Bill Mill, where the locus of evil is, the Capitol building at 10th and L downtown. And tonight it's an SHR special report. It's about the dangerous dumpster fire that is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And we were listening before we were so rudely interrupted by promotions, although I do have to keep something of a schedule here, by the great Ben Shapiro, who's weighing in on AOC's Green New Deal.
We're going to transition all of the energy away from fossil fuels, but there will be no use of nuclear energy, which means that we will all blow into pinwheels, apparently, to produce all of our energies. We will just train hamsters, and they will run around on wheels, and those wheels will power our new green economy.
Okay, that's exactly what I said. Ben Shapiro, get out of my head. There's only room in here for 2 of us. I have said this numerous times on various forms of social media. We have a massive, a wonderful, a great cadre of potential individuals to get us out of this predicament. And that's the tens and thousands of millennials and Gen Zers who, if we would just get them stationary bicycles and hook them all up in line to various dynamos on the bicycles, think of the incredible electrical energy that we could generate. It staggers the mind. Now remember this about the Green New Deal. It's available for each and every one of us in 3 easy payments of only $200,000 for each citizen of the United States. That's $600,000. Yes, the sweeping Green New Deal proposed by AOC is going to cost about $93 trillion. Only $600,000 per household, according to a new study co-authored by the former director of the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, or the CBO. What they say is the sobering and staggering cost estimate came as Democratic presidential hopeful Kamala Harris pointedly declined in an interview broadcast to put a price tag on the Green New Deal and Medicare for All, saying it's not about a cost. It's not about a cost, but rather a return on investment. The Green New Deal's botched rollout includes the release of the official document telling about people who were unable and unwilling, mostly unwilling to work. Tucker Carlson kind of weighs in on this thing, too, because
Republicans have described Ocasio-Cortez
I like Tucker
as the leader of her party, as the boss of the Democratic Party. And there's a reason that they're saying that, because she is.
Yep.
And she said so herself in an interview on Friday. Watch this.
Listen.
Oh, it's unrealistic. Oh, it's vague. Oh, it doesn't address this little minute thing. And I'm like, you try. You do it.
Right.
Because you're not. Because you're not. So until you do it, I'm the boss.
That's
How about that?
She's the boss.
She's the boss. So how did this happen? Well, for the last 2 years, Democrats have been very distracted. They have spent all of their time hating Donald Trump, and none of their time thinking about what they would do if they ever took charge, as they just did of the Congress last November.
Imagine that.
So they arrive in Washington in January, and they have no idea what to do. Lucky for them, someone had a plan. She was a 29-year-old bartender from the Bronx, and she showed up with a brand new Democratic platform already written. She imposed it on her party. It's called the Green New Deal. And in less than 2 months, she has basically convinced the entire leadership of the Democratic Party to buy into this plan, to ratify it. It's a perfect plan. It would shut down the entire American economy except for the hedge funds that fund Democratic campaigns. Absolutely perfect. There's only one downside. The plan, if enacted, would cost, some estimate, more than the entire global GDP. Not the GDP of the United States, but the GDP of the world.
Oh, but see, you don't understand, Tucker Carlson. That's immaterial. It's how it makes you feel. It's the emotional aspect out of it. It's not about where you're going to get the money. Come on. Just go with it. Go with the flow. The money, we'll find it somewhere. Yeah, the money's there.
It's
somewhere.
pretty expensive. But it doesn't bother Ocasio-Cortez at all. She doesn't care. Listen to her describe her reaction to the bean counter's description of this is too expensive. Here's what she says in response.
Yeah.
Our planet is going to face disaster if we don't turn the ship around.
Okay, stop right there. I'm not going to... I almost Bigfooted myself on that one. Okay, so let's continue about that. Because I have another direction that I want to go. By the way, if you can find the entire thing about the Green New Deal. It's available. There are links all over the place. You can find it. But you got to think about it, though, for a second. Who in their right mind wouldn't want a Green New Deal? It's all about the way you construct this thing. And words have meanings. And the way you utilize words and the way you otherwise appropriate words, they all have meaning. So doesn't that sound great? Of course. It's certainly... Everybody on today's college campi are in line with this, except, did I not say, have I not been continuing to say that the devil is in the details? What happens when you go to a college campus and begin telling people what this really is about? Are people going to change their minds? I'm not sure. Let's find out.
I'm Cabot Phillips with Campus Reform. Today we're at the University of Miami talking to students about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal. It sounds nice, it's ambitious, but will students support it when they find out what's actually in it? Let's talk to them and find out. The #1 trending thing on social media yesterday was her Green New Deal. It's a plan to combat climate change. It was already endorsed by multiple Democrat frontrunners for president in 2020.
Yeah.
Based on what you've heard of the plan, would you say you view it favorably or unfavorably?
I view it favorably. I think that we need to cut our reliance on fossil fuels. It's definitely a great idea.
I like that it's progressive. I like that it is going to push the world forward in the way we need to be.
I would say it's a favorable act.
Just from knowing who's endorsed it and just some little things, it sounds great.
I think it'd be great for us.
I think if we didn't do that.
What would happen to the English language if one day someone removed the word like?
Then we're going to be killing ourselves, basically. So we need to take care of ourselves.
I think it's very...
Black Sabbath song, Killing Yourself to Live. That's what would happen. That's what would happen.
Important to support that.
Anything that would reduce our dependence on fossil fuels is really important.
I definitely support this movement.
Some of the things in the plan I want to get your opinion on. So the plan says within 10 years, we're going to completely outlaw coal, natural gas, and oil. So gasoline, anything like that in 10 years.
I don't agree with that. To be honest with you, I think we need those things to live.
And I do not...
Wait. Did he just say, I think we need those things to live? I think he did.
I think it is feasible in 10 years. I don't think that would be something that would be able to be done in such a short amount of time.
I think 10 years is a little extreme because I feel like there's such a big global market and economic impact of oil businesses, albeit it might not be good for the environment, but you can't deny there's a big economic impact of these companies.
What's your thought on that?
Sounds like a reach, honestly.
Do you think that's feasible?
No.
If you're unwilling to work, we will still supply help for your salary and help for a living wage.
No, absolutely not.
If you're not willing to contribute to society, then I don't think that the people who are contributing should pay for you.
What?
So I disagree with that.
I feel like it kind of sends the poor message of, you can just get away with not doing anything and, getting money. It's kind of stupid. I don't.
It's kind of stupid. Translated, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you're kind of stupid.
Like that personally, unwilling isn't the best way to go about things. I don't want to go to college, but I have to get a job, so.
Everyone needs to contribute. That's the only way society works.
I don't know about that one. I think that if you're
sure.
unwilling, that I don't know if you should receive money for that.
If you didn't want to go to class, if you were unwilling to go to class, should I still give you a good grade?
No.
Wait, if you put it in terms that they can understand, then they begin to grok the concept.
I definitely need a job and need to work.
Eliminating almost all air travel with high-speed rails. What's your thought on that?
I feel like it's kind of the same one. It's like, I feel like 10 years is a little extreme for that.
I don't think it should be eliminated altogether. I think it's definitely, it can be an option. I think the more options we have, the better.
I think that's drastic. I haven't heard of that one yet.
Yeah, I can't see that happening either, honestly.
We've come so far to get to this point where we are right now with using these resources, and to say, oh, we have to get rid of it in 10 years seems a little too much to me.
Who's going to pay for all of it? Who's going to offset the trillions of dollar cost that it would be?
Right. I don't know.
Okay.
Nobody knows.
Okay.
Like, it's
She's actually correct.
kind of like, who's really going to pay? I don't, like...
Based on what you've heard from these, does it change your perception of the plan at all?
Yeah, a lot.
Sometimes you need to take extreme measures to save the environment, but I don't think that is like, I think it's a bit too extreme.
It doesn't sound like something I would be behind.
I don't agree with us having to, take away flying in the air. I don't agree with, taking away coal and things like that. And
the way he said flying in the air, it was almost like he was thinking about a magic carpet at the time. I don't think that we should remove people on magic carpets.
I don't agree with everyone getting money for doing nothing.
I'm Cabot Phillips with Campus Reform. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to donate to help us make more videos...
Oh, no, I'm not going to donate. Stop right there. Isn't it amazing how they changed their tune when just a dash of reality happened to come intruding? So, commensurate with AOC's, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's, Democrat socialist pap, well, wait a minute. What is socialism? Well, we heard about what we thought were the negative effects at the beginning of the show from people that actually came from Venezuela and told Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you're a liar. What can we say that we have a pretty good idea about the realities of socialism?
I would recommend to you to look at the facts. In the last century, socialism has been tried in more than 40 countries. Everywhere it has failed, and everywhere it has led to persecution, mass murder, and starvation. Those are the facts. Don't get caught in a dream. Look at the human toll on those 40 countries. Socialism is predicated on destroying free markets, on destroying representative democracy and republicanism, and it's predicated on destroying the heritage of Judeo-Christian civilization. The fact is, this isn't about representing your views, it's about a utopian image of the future.
Stop. Trust me when I tell you there will be no religion. The government will be the religion. In the United States of America, I have a question for you. How do you think that will play with Islam?
Image that, let's remember, cost the lives of more than 100 million human souls in the last century. So when the Victims of Communism Foundation does a poll and finds out that 42% of millennials wish to live in a socialist or communist America, we have a problem, friends, because that is not what we fought World War II or the Cold War about.
That's very true. So as I was saying, commensurate with her Democrat socialist pap, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez concurrently she began to implode from a massive sense of, well, I can think of no other word than entitlement, and perhaps the phrase would be working the system. Two things she swore to never do, because I suppose she lacked the capability, the likes of which she can do now, to do an open and easy access, to get and gain easy access. In other words, to free cheese. Remember what John Dahlberg Acton said. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. First, let's talk about her digs, okay? Remember when she said she had no place to live? Wait, hang on just 1 second. Do I detect an impending hypocrisy alert? BZ, perhaps. This is from CNBC. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. She still can't afford an apartment in D.C. 1 year ago, you would find AOC working behind the bar at Flats Fix, a small taqueria near Union Square. Come January, you'll find her in Washington, D.C., representing New York's 14th district as the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. But just because she's making history doesn't mean she's making bank or money. AOC recently revealed that she is currently unable to rent a D.C. apartment. Right? So sorry. You evidently didn't understand the you won't be making bank until you're actually sworn in part of it all. By the way, folks, did you know this? Were you aware of this? I suspect you kind of intuited this all along. 6 of the 10 richest counties in all of the United States are D.C. suburbs. 10 of the top 20. The Washington, D.C. area, home to the federal government and noted for double-dipping salaries, is the wealthiest region in the country, according to a new Census Bureau reporting. In 2017, the top 5 richest counties were Washington suburbs, and the top 10 list included a 6th Washington suburb at the number 10 bookend. The number 1 richest county in America is Loudoun County, Virginia, home to Dulles International Airport and hundreds of federal contractors and agencies. It's also the site of several mega data centers helped into the county by former Governor Terry McAuliffe and current Governor Ralph Northam. Gosh. Okay, so I wonder what happened, but hold on to that thought and keep the hypocrisy alert at the ready, because that bell is about to ding, right? The hypocrisy. What?
Terrain. Pull up.
Wait a minute. Then she did it. She went out and she acquired a luxury apartment. And this is from the WashingtonExaminer.com. Poor people are now not allowed in AOC's luxury apartment complex, where she's living now. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez recently moved into a luxury apartment complex in Washington, D.C. that does not offer the affording housing units that were a key plank in the New York Congresswoman's campaign platform. The 29-year-old said last November, that she was concerned about being able to afford rent in D.C. Now she earns a $174,000 annual salary and is living in the newly built high-rise in the city's very tony Navy Yard area. And that's what the Washington Free Beacon reported a couple of weeks ago. The freshman congresswoman, a self-described socialist, campaigned on a platform to expand affordable housing. And her controversial Green New Deal proposal promises safe, affordable, and adequate housing for all. However, she was, of course, repeatedly criticized during luxury real estate developers. She criticized them during her campaign, claiming that their buildings hiked up rent prices and pushed low-income residents out of the neighborhoods. She said exactly this. We need to kick luxury real estate lobbyists to the curb and defend working people's way of life. Skyrocketing cost of living is a national crisis that can be addressed. It's not just a New York City issue. It's happening in every U.S. metro area. Apparently, AOC, it's also happening in the Navy Yard ation where you just bought a very expensive apartment. Now, I'm not going to tell you this, and I'm not going to say that Super AOC, a woman of the people, is living at 1221 Van Street Southeast, almost directly south of the Capitol. Apartments in the building currently start at $1,840 per month. Check this out. For a 440 square foot studio. That's less than the size of this studio that I'm in right now. And it ranges up to $5,200 a month for a 3-bedroom. The average rent in Washington, D.C. is $1,340 for a 1-bedroom apartment and $1,550 for a 2-bedroom, according to the most recent data from the apartment list. So a few points come to my brain at this time. Folks, when was the last time you made $174,000 a year? And number 2, Do you think that I'm starting to identify some kind of a trend here? And isn't another quote beginning to emerge from the brilliant book by Eric Arthur Blair, otherwise known as George Orwell? And it goes like this. Remember, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. How dare people have the temerity to point out anything hypocritical about AOC? Damn their eyes. It must be because of, hashtag because Fox News. And all of this in just 3 months. From the NewYorkPost.com. Ocasio-Cortez rips the media for reporting on her new luxury high-rise. How dare you guys do that? She scolded media outlets for reporting that she lives in a luxury high-rise building in Washington, D.C. around the time that she and other high-profile Democrats appeared on a hit list compiled by a Maryland man arrested for allegedly planning a mass terror attack. Oh, for her, though, that wasn't the point. That was an excuse. She felt like she was doxxed. Because though she really wasn't. And on the other hand, doxing, as you very well imagine, is a very important and salient tactic utilized by her ilk on the left. So it's just nifty and peachy and fine to reveal the address of Tucker Carlson and place a bunch of dipsticks in front of his house and scare his wife and his kids. It's bad to reveal her address or even hint that she lives, like I said, in one of the more Tony locations of the Navy Yard. It's also worse to point out her hypocrisy. That's the issue here. The articles pointed out that AOC's platform as a champion of the poor took her to task for living in an upscale building that they claimed didn't offer affordable housing. To homeless even, but wait, speaking of addresses, were you aware that there's another issue? She covered her own little tracks in an address debacle. So she scrambled quickly to explain why neighbors at her listed Bronx address never saw her there, and ended up claiming she recently relocated to a larger place nearby. The day after the Post reported that residents said they'd never seen her around. You know, you're supposed to live in your district, right? And she ducked questions about it after an appearance. Her spokesman said the Democrat freshman congresswoman now lives with her boyfriend in a 2-bedroom apartment a block and a half away. The recent move still didn't explain why residents at her previous digs, a 1-bedroom Bronx condo owned by her mom, insisted they'd never seen her there before. Like I said, members of Congress, you, of course, know, are required to have a residence in the state they represent. So, like I say, trend, pattern, see anything developing? Hello, Bueller. She's a former bartender turned progressive pace setter. She ducked questions about her residence after an appearance in Queens. She told the Post to wait for her to pose for a photograph. Then she slipped out the back door into a waiting SUV. Okay, if I had a producer, this is what you'd hear. And she slipped out the back door into a waiting SUV. But I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. You mean an SUV, the likes of which she prescribes for you, that's proscribes for you, but deems necessary for her? No fossil fuel gas guzzlers for you, but they're just fine for her. The Green New Deal advocated for the entire elimination of internal combustion engines, and there's a ton of options available to her. Toyota, Nissan, GM, Ford, Chrysler, hybrids, and she still chose a massive SUV with 2 people aboard, her and the driver, at minimum, with at least 6 other seats available. Prove otherwise. Yet she chose an SUV. You know, it sure kind of smacks of elitism and hypocrisy to me. And all this in just 3 months. On the heels of her stellar Green New Deal, she essentially came out and said that women who consider bringing children into this world, they are morons. It's apocalypse now. I think I can even hear Dr. Smith right now. Can't you?
Oh, the pain. The pain. Oh, the pain. The pain.
Oh, the pain.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the final 25. I hope we get it done. I might have to go into some overtime tonight. I'm not quite sure yet. Thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show on SHR Media. Thanks to Big Sarge at Redcon1 for simulcasting me. And thanks to you for listening tonight, being involved in chat at shrmedia.com, and also watching the show, and also for being in podcast. I appreciate all the folks that listen to me in retrospect on podcast. Now, remember that I think Ocasio-Cortez said basically, we're all going to die in 10 years.
Out there waiting for us.
What?
And it ain't no man.
What? What?
We're all gonna die.
We're all going to die. And that's exactly what she said. Well, here's also specifically what she said as she sliced vegetables in her luxury Tony Navy Yard apartment.
Is it okay to still have children? We need a universal sense of urgency.
Right.
And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus
There is.
that the lives of children are going to be very difficult.
Yes.
And people are trying to like introduce watered down proposals that are frankly going to kill us. The way I feel about it is, first and foremost, we have to
I told you we're all going to die.
and center
What part of we're all going to die don't you guys
the
get?
people of Venezuela. This is really an issue of a failure of democracy. And when we see a failure of democracy, like for example,
Venezuela is a failure of democracy.
in our country, our planet is going to face disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children? And I mean, not just financially, because people are graduating with $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 worth of student loan debt.
Stop. Whose fault is that? And what's the government's role in that? Oh, that's right. The government is trying to entice you with candy because all the universities are kicking up their prices knowing full well the government is good for the money. If universities had to actually compete and the federal government wasn't involved, imagine how tuitions would go down, but you're not smart enough to realize that.
And so they can't even afford to have kids in a house, but also just this basic moral question, like what do we do? And even if you don't have kids,
it's still a basic moral question. Well, I think you get the deal on that. Make sure you remember that she was also very instrumental in ensuring that the city of New York missed out on about 24,000 new jobs by ensuring that Amazon's new headquarters was not located there. And she took a victory lap for that after a ton of other lawmakers had strongly criticized the planned opening of Amazon's second headquarters in New York. So Jeff Bezos, the tech giant and actually richest guy in the world, said it was pulling the plug on the proposed Long Island City location, and she was celebrating. She was absolutely celebrating. What they said was, Amazon, after much thought and deliberation, we've decided not to move forward with our plans to build a headquarters for Amazon in Long Island City, Queens, the statement said. For Amazon, the commitment to build a new headquarters requires positive, collaborative relationships with state and local elected officials who will be supportive over the long term. And would it shock you to know that they were not? Evil Amazon, with its evil jobs and its evil tax revenue. AOC she trashed the plan, which promised to create 25,000 jobs and $27.5 billion in tax revenues in 25 years. And all of this in just 3 months. She decided, after 3 months, it was time to drop her snout into the trough of free cheese. Didn't I tell you about that? Sure I did. Free cheese, though, for her and hers, though. Not for you. This is from a story. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez faces questions after her boyfriend gets a congressional email account. AOC is facing ethics questions after revelations the freshman lawmaker's office gave her boyfriend a congressional email account. The Democrat socialist waded into the issue in response to a tweet alleging boyfriend Riley Roberts had been put on staff. The tweet included a screenshot of an official House email address. Ocasio-Cortez insisted he was only given the email account so he could access her calendar. What's wrong with that? Asked about the arrangement, David O'Boyle, the spokesperson for the Office of the Chief Administrator Office, told this venue, from time to time, at the request of members, spouses and partners are provided House email accounts for the purposes of viewing members' calendar. Jason Chaffetz, however, damn his logical soul, weighed in. Former member, chairman, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, of the House Oversight Committee, said that all those claims, they don't stack up. What he said was, it's totally naive and inappropriate. You wouldn't allow it in most companies, let alone the House of Representatives. There should be real consequences. You know, considering his past and background, you might think that Jason Chaffetz knows a thing or two. What he said was that her boyfriend, Roberts, having access to the email could also create other security issues, and that the matter should be referred to the Capitol Police for further investigation. This I found particularly salient. Being given a password to get into the House computer system has other potential problematic issues with it as well. Okay, I'm going to go to a line here, and I want you to remember this name. This, as my professors used to say, you'll see this material again. Saikat Chakrabarti, the Congresswoman's chief of staff, insisted that the boyfriend isn't on the payroll and that he's not doing any work related to the government. So the storm's beginning to brew. We start to see some whitecaps here. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Ocasio-Cortez says that white people are racist because they all inherit houses from their parents. She argued that a lack of understanding of the policies, being white and wealth, helps promote racism against African Americans and other minorities. How, you may ask? When people are not educated about the tools and the systems that created racist wealth gap disparities or other wealth gap disparities, you create this gaping maw in which someone can tell a racist story that kind of tells people why a certain community is poor. They're poor because they're lazy. They're poor because they're uneducated. They're poor because this, she said, mimicking a racist. Where no one says they're poor because they're redlining and everybody else inherited a house, except for people of color. Okay, well, let's check that. Let's check. Folks, I have to admit, I got a free house. Didn't you inherit one also? I'm pretty sure Sackhead Sean, he got a free house. Clint, I'm pretty sure he got a free house. But listen, I'm going to spill the beans. On the Caucasoid side, here's what actually happens. All Caucasoids are automatically granted one free house from an inheritance. It doesn't have to necessarily be an inheritance from your family. You can steal it from somebody else. But damn it, if you're a Caucasoid, you're going to get an inheritance. What she doesn't want you to know is that her own mother left the state of New York for Florida because of the ridiculously exorbitant tax rates right there in New York. And she also doesn't want you to know that her living in New York, as I told you before, is actually a question. It's in question. She claimed that she lived at that prior address in New York since 2011 in a mortgage-free fourth-floor condo in Parkchester, which, according to records, was bought by her dad, Sergio Ocasio, who died in 2008. You see what we're saying here? After the Post reported a next-door neighbor and another fourth-floor resident saying they never saw the self-proclaimed socialist living there, Trent denied the resident's claim, saying her family's apartment was home, period, for her, according to the Daily Mail. Okay, read that again. If that wasn't an inherited house that she got, I don't know what is. Ocasio-Cortez previously claimed that she lived there since 2011 in a mortgage-free fourth-floor condo in Parkchester, which, according to records, was bought by her dad, Sergio Ocasio, who died in 2008. Did she pay for that? Did she have to pay the mortgage on that? Sounds to me like she inherited that house. Yeah, that's another hypocrisy alert. And all this in just 3 months. Remember, the actual work of that job, being a representative in the House, it's terrible. She had no idea this was all gonna be so much work. This was supposed to be easy. She was supposed to sweep in, say a few things, automatically whatever she said, that'd happen, and she'd be worshipped and adored for her striking jawline, her great skin, and, of course, her overall cuteness. And then she could partay at the new digs, right? She's working all the time. She wants you to know.
The thing they don't tell you about working in Congress is that if you do what you're supposed to do, you're working all the time.
All the time.
Okay, guys, I'm just getting out of work. That's my office behind me.
She's working all the time.
The thing they don't tell you about working in Congress is that if you do what you're supposed to do, you're working all the time, which means that you have no time to like set up your life. So I spent weeks sleeping on an air mattress, and I don't own a chair. So I'm going to try to do that.
But she's in a great apartment, right? And didn't we see her in the kitchen chopping vegetables? We sure did. She also thinks that displaying compassion, any kind of compassion, just really doesn't cut it. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is getting lambasted online for immediately condemning thoughts and prayers in the wake of New Zealand mosque, that mosque massacre that left 49 worshippers dead. Imagine being told your house of faith isn't safe anymore, but I couldn't say imagine because of Charleston, Pittsburgh, Sutherland Springs, she wrote. What good are your thoughts and prayers when they don't even keep the pews safe? Good to know that you are continuing on that great leftist meme, AOC. Of course, she took great umbrage when she questioned the Wells Fargo CEO, Timothy Saloon, which, if you listen to this, and we're going to hear it, it was like this abortive word salad of non-sequitur, I can't even say the damn phrase, non-sequitur-ish GERP in her attempt to make Wells Fargo responsible for, well, anything and everything that doesn't go her way and everything that she just doesn't like. She thinks it's their job, it's Wells Fargo's job, to care basically one tinker's tit for climate change, whatever the hell that may be. So here's Ocasio-Cortez, and she's in the limelight. She's wearing a green dress, and damn it, does she look cute.
Gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sloan, earlier today you said that Wells Fargo does not put profits over people, correct?
That's correct.
I'm interested in...
See what she's doing? She's about ready to pounce. She's going to pounce. There's going to be so much pouncing. It's going to be pouncelicious.
In the human rights abuses and environmental disasters that some say are financed by your bank, Wells Fargo. In a recent Guardian article by Crystal Tubles and Matt Remley, they stated...
Crystal Tubles.
Wells Fargo has pursued profits without principles by investing in private prisons, for-profit immigration detention centers, loan shark-like payday lending, and holding much of the bond debt, strangling...
Okay, let's talk about payday lending. All of those things they're doing were legal. If you don't want it legal, then proscribe it. Right? AOC, isn't that why you sign bills?
Rico's efforts to lift itself out of its financial crisis. Is it true that Wells Fargo has invested or financed in some of these industries?
We made a decision 2 years ago to exit the two relationships that we had with two private prison firms. One has been exited, and then when the credit agreement with the other one amortizes and matures, we will no longer have that relationship.
Are those two companies Geo Group and Core-Civic?
Correct.
And which one has been exited, Geo Group or Core-Civic?
I can't recall exactly which one. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'd like to seek unanimous consent to submit 3 reports highlighting.
Okay, in chat, Dave Milner says, BZ, you can't make this stuff up. You're right. You can't write this.
The bank's role in debt financing these groups, the for-profit prison companies running ICE detention facilities.
Without objection, such is the order.
Mr. Saloon, why was the bank involved in the caging of children and financing the caging of children to begin with?
Okay. Pause.
I don't know how to answer that question because we weren't.
So in finance, you were financing.
Do you understand this is where her mind goes? This is where her mind goes 24/7. 24/7. It's relentless. Can you imagine being the boyfriend to this little unit that she thinks of this shit 24/7? Are you fucking kidding me?
In debt financing of Core-Civic.
And no, there won't be much fucking. Not in this neighborhood.
Correct.
For a period of time, we were involved in financing one of the firms. We're not anymore, and the other. I'm not familiar with the specific assertion that you're making, but we weren't directly involved in that.
Okay, so these companies run private.
But in her brain, you're evil.
Detention facilities run by ICE, which is involved in caging children. But I'll move on.
Wait. What? What? You see the cognitive dissonance there? You see the complete non sequitur bullshit that's going on in her brain? This little bint has got some neurons that are fucking misfiring.
Mr. Saloon, Wells Fargo was also an investor, a major investor in the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Keystone XL pipelines. They were prime investors and lenders to companies building these pipelines in defiance of Standing Rock Sioux's treaty rights to protect its water and sacred lands.
Okay, if that was true, they would have had their asses sued out the yard completely. And if they finished, it's because they weren't.
They warned early on, the Lakota Sioux warned early on that the pipeline was unstable and bound to leak. Despite that, it was built anyway, and it has leaked at least 5 times. And the Keystone XL in particular had one leak that leaked 210,000 gallons across South Dakota. Since Wells Fargo...
By the way, get on your favorite search engine and find that out. That's not true.
Financed the building of this pipeline in an environmentally unstable way. Why shouldn't the bank be held responsible for financing the cleanup of the disasters from these projects?
Okay, can anyone answer that? Me? You? Bueller? Because it's not the bank's responsibility to figure out what the company's doing with the money. They're adults. They enter into an adult contract, and within reason, they let the companies decide what they're going to use the cash for. My guess would be this was already played out in the contract. Do you see what she's doing here? As to who she wants to be responsible for this.
Which pipeline are you referring to?
Either.
So we were not involved in the financing of the XL pipeline. We were one of the 17 or 19 banks that was involved in the financing of the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Okay, so Wells...
Wait a minute, she just lied.
Fargo hasn't financed any company associated with the Keystone XL pipeline?
No, I didn't say that. I said we're not involved in financing that pipeline specifically.
Okay, so let's focus on the Dakota Access Pipeline. Should Wells Fargo be held responsible for the damages incurred by climate change due to the financing of fossil fuels and these projects?
Now You're getting into the heart of the matter, and that's what she's living for. That's what all social justice warriors live for. Her job is to find that inexorable link between climate change and fleecing the hell out of your pockets.
I don't know how you'd calculate that, Congresswoman.
Say from spills, or when we have to reinvest in infrastructure, building seawalls from the erosion of infrastructure, or cleanups, wildfires, etc.
Okay, does anybody think that BP didn't pay up the ass for Deepwater Horizon? Anybody? Bueller? Again? Hands? Let's see. Speaking of Deepwater Horizon, I hadn't planned on going here, but I'm going to go there anyway. And that's this. Deepwater Horizon likely would not have occurred in terms of a spill or a breakage if they'd been able to sink that platform closer to the continental United States of America. The further out and the deeper you create an oil platform, the more of a chance there is that there's going to be damage, not unlike what occurred at Deepwater Horizon. It was the policy of the United States of America under Barack Hussein Obama to make sure that the Deepwater Horizon platform was pushed so far out. As I say, the further out they go, the greater a chance for some kind of an issue. So really, who pushed that?
Related to that pipeline, I'm not aware that there's been any of what you described that's occurred related to that.
How about the cleanups from the leaks of the Dakota Access Pipeline?
I'm not aware of the leaks associated with the Dakota Access Pipeline that you're describing.
So hypothetically, if there was a leak from the Dakota Access Pipeline, why shouldn't Wells Fargo pay for the cleanup of it, since it paid for the construction of the pipeline itself?
Why should it pay?
Because we don't operate the pipeline. We provide financing to the company.
You mean a common sense reply?
It's operating the pipeline. Our responsibility is to ensure that at the time that we make that loan, that customer, and we have a group of people in Wells Fargo, including an environmental oversight group headed by one of my colleagues who used to be at the EPA.
So one question, why did Wells Fargo finance this pipeline when it was widely seen to be environmentally unstable?
As a matter of fact, no, it wasn't widely seen to be environmentally unstable. And number two, they're in the business of making money with their investors. Yeah. And then after that, but wait, there's more. Now, shite is starting to get real. And we found out that, yeah, AOC, she got her beak wet early. And all this in just 3 months. But here's not what you're seeing and hearing. Remember I made reference during the last segment, during that guy, for that guy, Saikat Chakrabarti. Here's an article from the New York Post. Ocasio-Cortez aide accused of funneling $1 million into private accounts. A conservative government watchdog group filed a complaint with the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, accusing Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's top aide of funneling $1 million in donations into his private accounts in a possible violation of the law, according to a report. The transfers were made by Saikat Chakrabarti, Ocasio-Cortez's chief of staff, and may have run afoul of the FEC Campaign Act that places a limit of $5,000 on contributions from political action committees, or PACs, to candidates, the Washington Examiner reported. The complaint, which was filed Monday, that's Monday of this week, by the National Legal and Policy Center, said the transfers violated the law because PACs must disclose what those funds were used for, such as advertisements, payments to vendors, and donations to candidates. It gets a little bit deeper than that, and this isn't a good thing necessarily for her and him. Former FEC commissioners say that AOC could face serious prison time for the FEC violation. They say AOC and her chief of staff, Saikat Chakrabarti, could be facing prison time for a major campaign finance violation. They were running a PAC that supported her campaign in the 2018 election, which is a big no-no, and now they could be forced to pay the consequences. Now, I'm going to have to skip ahead because there's a video or an audio cut that I want you to hear. Let me give a little nuance and a little substance here. AOC never disclosed to the FEC that she and Chakrabarti, who served as her campaign chair, controlled the PAC while it was simultaneously supporting her primary campaign. And former FEC commissioners say that arrangement could lead to multiple campaign finance violations. Another FEC commissioner said if the facts are true and a candidate had control over a PAC that was working to get that candidate elected, the candidate is potentially in very big trouble and may have engaged in multiple felony federal campaign violations. If a complaint were filed, which it was, it could result in a very serious investigation. So that's what happened. Then there was that FEC complaint, as I referred, and today, well, it's tomorrow on the East Coast, but today it's only 10 o'clock. And I am going to go into overtime, and I'm not going to play any more promos because I want to continue on this, because I think it's all very important. Ocasio-Cortez and her top aide officially were removed from the Board of Justice Democrat PAC after that FEC complaint. Now, I told you that I wanted you to remember the name of Chakrabarti, and I want you now to remember the name of the Justice Democrats who have a PAC, and they removed her and AOC from their board. They're no longer board members of that PAC because of what happened. But wait, there's more. They say it's unclear why the Justice Democrats, why it took them more than 8 months to finally remove AOC from its board, and the PAC didn't respond for any kind of a request for a comment or anything like that. So let's review. It went from emails to hypocrisy to a luxury apartment to outright fraud. And all this in just 3 months with some blowback as well. There's some blowback. One of my favorite guys, Jeff Dunitz, has a blog, a website called lidblog.com. He wrote here, Ocasio-Cortez's unfavorable rating skyrockets with most people viewing her negatively. She shot to fame and then she started to plummet, and now she's not getting the ratings that she once did. Imagine that. So here's a freshman Congress critter that was embracing basically the most transparent House seat in the history of history. Does that kind of sound familiar? Like some dude named Obama? And now she's on the cusp of being one of the people with the largest potential crash in history. And all this in just 3 months. By the way, that Gallup poll that was that Jeff Dunitz referred to showed that her unfavorable rating has been by 15 points, has risen by 15 points since last September when she had yet to win the general election. But I'm going to put a bunch of stuff together for you. It gets even stranger. Remember Chakrabarti and remember the Justice Democrats? Okay, keep those in mind. Keep those in mind. We're going to assemble some things for you here. This is going to be about 15 minutes or so, but I think when you hear this, the curtains will be parted and you will gain insight into what AOC is doing, and people like her who are telling you they're completely on the up and up.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Mr. Reagan.
Did you hear what that said? It said the brains behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What does that lead you to believe?
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not really the Congresswoman of New York's 14th Congressional District. She is essentially an actress. She's merely playing the part of a New York Congresswoman.
Wait, what?
I know this sounds crazy, but bear with me. In 2017, a group called the Justice Democrats held auditions for potential congressional candidates that they would run on their platform for various congressional seats throughout the country.
This is true, and you're going to hear it verified.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's brother Gabriel submitted her for the role. Now, I've auditioned for many acting roles in my day. I've also cast many of my own projects. I know how this works. If you find somebody with star power, even if they don't 100% fit the part, you go with it. Obviously, AOC has star power. Just look at her. She's a superstar, the most famous person in Congress, maybe ever. Their casting was perfect. Now, I didn't have to go digging for evidence for this because they freely admit it. They brag about it.
Listen to this. Listen to this.
In 2016, we put out a call for nominations.
Okay, this is Alexandra Rojas, who is the executive director for Justice Democrats.
We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
My brother told me that he had sent my nomination in the summer, but I was like literally working out of a restaurant then, and I was like, there's no way.
A casting call. They had a casting call. They cast Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the role of Congresswoman.
Yes.
And they did this so they could promote their own agenda. In this video, I'm going to make 3 very serious accusations against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. 1, she did not actually run for Congress. 2, she is a puppet congresswoman. And 3, the people controlling her are very dangerous.
I don't know about 1. I agree with 2. And I think I'm probably going to end up agreeing with 3. But let's listen.
First point I have already made. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not run. She was run. What I mean by that is Alexandria did not take it upon herself to run for Congress. She was used by this group, the Justice Democrats, as a figurehead through which they could gain control of New York's 14th Congressional District House seat. These guys not only...
I hope you understand that, and I hope you understand the very important difference between them.
Only scripted and produced AOC's beautiful campaign video, but they organized the entire grassroots campaign effort. They handled all the fundraising, the social media, the get out the vote effort. They turned Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez into a brand, and they used that brand to take control of that House seat.
Now, consider that and the things that are being said and will be said in the future here very shortly with the FEC complaint and what they're alleging.
The people of New York did not elect a Puerto Rican girl from Brooklyn to represent them. They elected an Indian guy from Texas and a white guy from Tennessee. Now, let's move on to my second accusation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a puppet congresswoman. AOC does not make her own policy decisions. She does not decide which way she votes on legislation. She defers completely to her team. This is a serious claim, I know, but consider the following evidence. This is a video of Corbin Trent, one of Alexandria's top advisors, speaking with Zach Alexi, the Saul Alinsky-style strategy expert who organized much of AOC's campaign. Corbin Trent is now Alexandria's top congressional aide.
And what's the stat that we were looking at earlier about
how much people are making?
Yeah, about low-income people and how big of a percent of our society that is now.
40%. Well, people that make $19,999 a year or less. So people that make $20,000 a year or less make up.
Stop right here. Stop right here. Don't you enjoy the delicious, the delicious, salacious aspect of this? The Schadenfreude. This thing is shot fucking full of Schadenfreude. Because here's 2 white guys deciding what she's going to do. One of them's from Texas.
Right around 40% of Americans, right? So it's
40% of Americans make less than 20,000.
Yeah. It's like 60 million people make less than $20,000.
These are her talking points.
For the year.
They are issued to her from them.
100 million Americans make less than $20,000 a year. That's 40% of this country.
40% of Americans make less than 20,000.
That's 40% of this country.
These guys are coaching her. They're scripting everything she says. You notice when she goes off script because she suddenly starts babbling incomprehensibly. The girl in this next clip is now the head of the Justice Democrats. Her name, Alexandra Rojas.
Really, I think a big anchor piece is the Green New Deal and talking about it in a frame of social, racial, and economic justice and a mobilization of our economy and our society at the scale of what we did during World War II.
The Green New Deal
how's that going to be different?
I think what we're calling for is a mobilization of our economy, of our society on the scale that we haven't seen since World War II.
Like, this is the war, this is our World War II.
It's clear that AOC is being coached on absolutely every policy point she makes. And if this is not enough to give you pause, consider that the Green New Deal was drafted in one weekend by her staff.
Hey, nice. Okay, so they did a little quick drawing.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had zero to do with it. As far as I could find, she wasn't even in the room. Now, this is AOC's landmark legislation proposal. It essentially sums up her entire platform and lays out everything she wants to do in Congress. She didn't even participate in the drafting of the legislation.
Dare I say it again? If you just tuned in, okay, 2 Caucasoids.
And again,
males.
These people aren't even trying to cover this up. They're proud of it. Again, AOC is a figurehead, a mouthpiece. The congressional seat is being operated behind the scenes.
Dare I say, mouth breather.
Old interviews show that the Justice Democrats initially declared that they wanted candidates of substance. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a bartender. Now, who is more useful to an evil organization trying to take over Congress? A principled politician who happens to align with their views, or a pawn, a malleable innocent who they can manipulate, somebody completely ignorant of politics who must rely wholly on them to direct all her political positions?
And a product of public schooling.
Statements and votes. AOC has had enough embarrassing gaffes to know that if she goes off script, it hurts. It can humiliate her. So she has become absolutely dependent on the instruction of her handlers. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez seems...
Isn't that an interesting point? You see why I liked this video? Makes a lot of very interesting points and dovetails, helps to dovetail everything together.
Like, to anyone unfamiliar with her arrangement, like a bit of an enigma. Most of the time she seems to bumble along with no apparent idea about what she's doing. But sometimes she says and does things that seem kind of brilliant.
Let's play a lightning round game. I'm going to be the bad guy, which I'm sure half the room would agree with anyway. And I want to get away with as much bad things as possible, ideally to enrich myself and advance my interest, even if that means putting my interests ahead of the American people. The limits that are placed on me as a congresswoman, compared to the executive branch and compared to, say, the President of the United States, would you say that Congress has the same sort of standard of accountability?
In terms of laws that apply to the President?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is a guy named Walter Schaub, who was an advisor, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington.
Yeah, there's just almost no laws at all that apply to the President.
So I'm being held, and every person in this body is being held to a higher ethical standard than the President of the United States.
That's right, because there are some ethics committee rules that apply to you.
And it's already super legal, as we've seen, for me to be a pretty bad guy. So it's even easier for the President of the United States to be one, I would assume.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
This is initially what got me thinking. Who's pulling the strings here? Who's the man behind the curtain? I went to CPAC last week, as some of you know, in Washington, D.C., and I met a lot of people in politics. Occasionally, somebody would bring up AOC. I always took this opportunity to ask one question. Who's really running the show? Who's the brains behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
It ain't her. Remember, it ain't her.
One guy had an answer. He grabbed his phone, he pulled up a Politico article, and he shoved it into my hand. That's who, he said. The man behind the curtain is this guy, Saikat Chakrabarti.
Wait. I'm waiting for a producer. You know, because if I had a producer, what you would have heard is him saying, Saikat Chakrabarti. Right? Come on. But I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. Saikat Chakrabarti, who, by the way, I should tell you, is the co-founder of Justice Democrats.
Saikat was AOC's campaign manager and is now her chief of staff. Saikat came out of...
What? Her chief of staff?
Harvard and worked as an organizer for the Bernie Sanders campaign. This guy doesn't really have the charisma to run for office himself. He's a little awkward. He might have Asperger's or something like that. He kind of reminds me of Daniel Radcliffe, actually. But don't let his disarming awkwardness fool you. He's been an extremely effective political operative. He's got some terrifying political influences, and he's suspected of committing some severe campaign finance violations. But we'll get into all that later.
Just as Dave Milner says in chat, you know what he is? He's her handler.
Saikat Chakrabarti is a sinister character, and hearing more about him later will give you chills. But the man who hired him to head up the Justice Democrats will horrify you, if you can even believe it.
Isn't this juicy? When I found this, courtesy of, I think it was the Alaskan, if I'm not mistaken. When I found this and I heard this, I thought, oh, my audience has to hear this about what is actually occurring with AOC.
The mastermind behind it all, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. Now, this may all sound...
What? Wasn't he the guy that said the F word and the S word when Donald Trump got elected? Well, yeah, he was.
Completely nuts, like a big conspiracy theory. But the Justice Democrats was heavily promoted on the Young Turks. We have video evidence from the inception through into the campaigns.
I think they have maxed out on incompetence. So that is why we must choose a new path. And that is what we embark upon today. What we need to do is take over the Democratic Party. And as Martin Luther King said when he did the Civil Rights Movement, he said he was doing it not just to help African Americans, but to save the soul of America. Here we're going to try to save the soul of the Democratic Party by boarding the Democratic Party ship and taking it over. How are we going to do that? We're going to run strong progressives. From now on, there will be a new wing of the Democratic Party, and it will be the Justice Democrats. We will seek social justice, economic justice, racial justice, and plain old justice.
What about salamander justice and gecko justice and nematode justice?
Now, you might think, if Cenk wanted influence in government, why didn't he just run? If Saikat Chakrabarti wanted influence in government, I mean, despite his awkwardness, why didn't he run? Why put up AOC?
Now you know. Now you know the front. The front has a square chin. She's cute, long black hair, cow-like lashes, beautiful brown eyes, gorgeous skin. She's not them.
The goals of this group are far grander and far more sinister than simply electing a single congresswoman to office. The goals are to take over the Democratic Party, eventually take control of Congress, and in turn, control the United States.
Right, just like Dave says. What about justice for seeing eye chameleons? Because seeing eye chameleons, after all, see all.
And I know all of this sounds completely insane, but they have expressed their intentions very clearly on camera.
We're going to run hundreds of candidates, and we're going to primary all of the establishment Democrats. So we're not going to be like, is it Chuck Schumer? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? No, it's a hard no. But wait a minute now. Are you really going to primary vulnerable Democrats? Yeah,
yes.
That's the whole point. If in 2018...
Okay, stop just for a second. Isn't that how AOC got her seat? That's the exact same thing that got her seat.
We don't achieve our grand vision of a wholesale change in 2 years, which is very, very hard. We know that, right? Are you kidding me? If you got 6, let alone 12, let alone 24 people in Congress, you know what would happen in Washington? People would freak the hell out. They'd be like, oh my God, what in the world? These guys that had no money to begin with, no nothing to begin with, just put 24 people in Congress. Look, we want hundreds. We want to replace Congress.
In an article in Politico, one journalist wrote, the group's criteria for picking primary targets is unclear and at times contradictory. Yeah, that's because their goal is not ideological. Their goal is control and power.
Washington doesn't care about beseeching. That's not how it works. They care about power. So primaries are an exercise in power. It's way past time that progressives exercise their power in this country, and that's exactly what these guys are doing.
Wasn't that true of Hillary Clinton? Beseeching? Why, yes, it was.
Heed, communications director for the Justice Democrats, has said you can tacitly support Medicare for All and the Green New Deal, and we still might primary you because there's enough energy in the district to find somebody more charismatic and compelling who is actually going to be a movement builder. No, you know why they might primary you? Because they don't own you. And maybe they found somebody that they think can beat you and that they can control, another AOC. Even Ilhan Omar has said,
"Isn't this brilliant in its own way? Isn't this brilliant? And do you see how this all works together? That's why I did the show tonight."
It's quite inappropriate for groups to decide on whether or not somebody deserves to represent their district. Those decisions need to come from the people that we represent. And Ilhan Omar was actually endorsed by the Justice Democrats after she won her primary. The reason more people aren't speaking out against this completely unethical political tactic is that nobody knows it's happening. I mean, you might be asking, if all these guys are so corrupt, if what they're doing is so obviously sinister, why hasn't anybody else reported on it? Their tactics have been extremely different to anything seen in the US before, and that's probably why nobody has copped on to what they're doing yet. Also, mostly what they're doing is annoying Democrats, so conservatives haven't paid all that much attention.
And they don't care, much to their own detriment. They got AOC. They don't know waiting in the wings are more carbon copies of AOC.
The first thing the Justice Democrats did was to try to primary Democratic incumbents. What that means is they would mount primary campaigns against incumbent Democrats, establishment Democrats already in Congress that they didn't like. This, as far as I can tell, was Cenk Uyghur's idea. Basically, the concept was, since many establishment Democrats weren't progressive enough, i.e. socialist, the Justice Democrats would nominate their own candidates to mount a primary challenge. One of the guys they didn't like was Joe Crowley, the guy that they put AOC up against. He had been in Congress for 20 years. Other members of Congress have reached out to AOC to try to convince her to stop primarying establishment candidates, but they're reaching out to the wrong person. AOC does not control the show. They should be trying to convince Saikat Chakrabarti. He's the one AOC takes her orders from. But Cenk and Saikat's plan is not to win a couple of congressional seats. It's total congressional domination.
Look, we want hundreds. We want to replace Congress.
Basically, Cenk's plan in creating the Justice Democrats was to replace all the Democrats in Congress with his own people. Radical leftists, socialists, people who would fall in line with his ideology.
Speaking of his ideology, just one question for you out there. Who do you think is throwing money at this? Because you always need to follow the money, don't you? Who do you think is behind this? Starts with the letter G.
And he did it. He actually did it. Now, Cenk comes up with a clever quip from time to time, and he's been able to create a very successful propaganda platform with the Young Turks. But if you've ever watched him, you know he's not exactly a genius. He talks and acts more like a two-bit thug than a political pundit. So how did he do it? He hired geniuses. He brought in the top guys from the Bernie campaign. The Bernie campaign was unprecedented in their grassroots success. They were brilliant. I actually did a lot of research on this, and the keys to their success are equal parts nefarious and creepy, but they are, nevertheless, very effective. And you got to hand it to Cenk. Bringing these guys on was a brilliant move. Fresh from the Bernie campaign with nothing to do, they must have been itching to tackle a new left-wing political project. So Cenk had this crazy idea. Replace all the Democrats in Congress with his own hand-picked radical left socialists. And he had a brilliant idea. Get the geniuses from the Bernie campaign to do it for him. And they did it. They succeeded. Perhaps not as well as they wanted, but it did work. And that is terrifying. Of the guys that Cenk brought in from the Bernie campaign, the two most important, from what I could find, were Saikat Chakrabarti and Zach Exley. Saikat seems to be the philosophical core of the operation, and Zach Exley is the organizational mastermind. Zach Exley is basically an expert on Saul Alinsky-style community organizing, and both he and Saikat are tech guys. They're very experienced with social media campaigning. Now, they did a great job in 2018, but make no mistake, these guys are not content with their 2018 victory. They're playing a long game here. 2018 was just the beginning. They'll redouble their efforts in 2020, 2022, 2024, at which time I am 100% convinced that they will run somebody for president. For the 2018 elections, the Justice Democrats endorsed 79 candidates. 26 of them won their primary elections. 7 of them won in the general election and are now in Congress.
Stop. Again, where is the money coming? Always follow the money. Whom do you think?
Most of these people's names I can't even pronounce. Raul Grijalva, Ro Khanna, Ayan Presley, Pramila Jayapal, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Of these 7, 3 were chosen through the audition process and are, as far as I can tell, puppets of the Justice Democrats, Saikat Chakrabarti, and Cenk Uygur. These candidates are Ayan Presley, Rashida Tlaib, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Imagine if they run not 79 candidates, but 200 or 400 or 1,000. At their current rate of success, they would get 88 House seats, and if they improve their techniques, they might get more, including Senate seats. The first screenplay I ever wrote,
Okay, stop here for a second. But remember, never lose sight of the ultimate plan. While this is all going on, you've also got Elizabeth Warren talking about, well, you know what, and the rest of the Democrats saying we need to increase SCOTUS from 9 to, say, 15. We need to remove the Electoral College, and then we need to make sure that there's no way that we can ever lose an election again. If we didn't win in 2016, we've got to make sure that we do whatever it is that's necessary, that we win in perpetuity, as I am fond of saying. Always. The thing with that, with Democrats, leftists, and the American media maggots all working in concert, is always change the goalpost.
15, it was about a future in which a megalomaniac was trying to take over the U.S. government. He was trying to do this by installing puppet politicians throughout the U.S. Congress, giving him a majority, and in the climactic point in the movie, his puppet president is also elected. So in my screenplay, this villain effectively gains control over the U.S. government through these politicians who are loyal to him. I never thought that this fiction that I wrote as a teenager would ever become reality. It's completely crazy, but it looks like this has actually started to happen. Cenk Uygur is no longer formally associated with the Justice Democrats or AOC's congressional team, but whether or not he still holds influence over these people is unknown. What is known is that these people are dangerous. Zach Exley is a radical left Open Borders guy who was once a fellow at the Open Borders Foundation, which is George Soros' organization. And
Stop. What did I tell you? Mr. Producer, weigh on in. George Soros. And let's continue.
He seems to be the least extreme of these guys. Cenk Uygur calls his organization the Young Turks. The Young Turks is named after a group of Turkish revolutionaries formed in 1911 who slaughtered 1.5 million people in the Armenian genocide. So we know where Cenk's influence is at. Saikat Chakrabarti is influenced by this guy, Subhas Chandra Bose. How do we know this? Because he wears this Che Guevara-style shirt with Subhas Chandra Bose's face on it in most of his videos. That seems like a pretty deliberate choice. At first, I actually thought it was...
Hey, stop, that's my shtick.
...his own face. I was like, why is this guy wearing a shirt with his own face on it? That's crazy narcissistic. But then I figured out it was this Subhas guy. So who is Subhas Chandra Bose? He was the violent complement to the non-violent Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, the legendary Gandhi. Whilst Gandhi was trying to expel the British from India non-violently, this guy was like, no, let's start a war and let's kill them all. Actually, it was worse than that. Much, much, much worse. Subhas called himself a socialist, but he is quoted as saying, "Our philosophy should be a synthesis between Nazism and communism." Another important thing that we need to recognize about Subhas is that he was an anti-colonialist. Now, we're not super familiar with this political perspective here in the US, but in India, anti-colonialism causes deep resentment to this day. This is explained in the documentary film 2016, Obama's America. In this film, Dinesh D'Souza explains anti-colonialism and shows how these ideas influence Barack Obama because, and this is the scary part, the United States is founded on colonialism. To the anti-colonialist, the U.S. is an evil empire that colonized North America. The United States is the enemy and is to be fought. It's to be resisted, torn down. This is the guy that Saikat Chakrabarti, AOC's chief of staff, wears on his t-shirt, a pro-violence, anti-colonial socialist who dreamed of a Nazi communist government. This is the man behind the curtain. This is the brains behind AOC.
You can't write this shit. It writes itself.
It's definitely scarier to me that he's not a congressman, but that he is the man behind the curtain. There is no accountability for the man behind the curtain. If AOC falls from grace, he can just hire another actress. There are no term limits to being the guy behind the curtain. When I got back from CPAC 6 days ago, Saikat Chakrabarti was in the news for the first time ever.
And all this in just 3 months. All this in just 3 months.
I was surprised because I'd never heard of him until I went to Washington. As it turns out, he has been flagged recently for diverting at least $1 million in campaign donations from the political action committee that he was running to shell companies that he set up. At the moment, it's unclear whether he was embezzling the money or just hiding it from FEC over.
Okay, stop here for a second. Stop here for a second. Isn't this delicious? Listen to what this guy said. Basically what he said, that AOC is a useful tool. She's a Kleenex. And if, for example, this $1 million Justice Democrats PAC somehow gets torn apart by the FEC and there really is an investigation that results in any kind of charges, what did he just say? AOC is a Kleenex. She'll be kicked aside. They'll do a screen test for another individual and they will find another individual. AOC thinks it's all about her. Hello, Earth to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Time for your wake-up call.
Oversight. Either way, it looks like he's in trouble. For a guy who claims to be trying to get money and influence out of government, he doesn't seem to mind leveraging those tools himself. You may have heard something about this. What you probably haven't heard about is AOC's sinister living wage rules. So AOC announced a little while ago that she was going to cap her congressional staff's pay at $80,000 so that she could pay her bottom-level staff a living wage and her interns $15 per hour. But here's the thing. AOC's living wage rule allows her staff to dodge financial disclosure laws. Under federal law, congressional employees who earn over $126,000 per year must disclose all of the outside money that they earn. Because AOC's top staff will not be making over $126,000 per year, they will not be subject to this law. I wonder who came up with this brilliant scheme, Saikat Chakrabarti. I know it wasn't the bartender. This team of guys who got AOC elected and who are now pulling the strings of her congressional seat declared at the outset that they were trying to bring integrity into government, transparency, to flush out the corruption. Well, it looks like they're trying in every way they possibly can to hide their own activities. They say that sunlight is the best disinfectant. I say it's about time we pulled the curtain all the way back on this particular wizard and all of his friends. Oh, and just remember, the next time you see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's fake. She's a fraud. She's not real. None of her tweets are actually her tweets. None of her speeches are her speeches. Her answers to questions and interviews, she was coached to give those. She's not a real congresswoman. She's an actress. All right, that's it for me. If you like this episode, hit the like button. If you want to see more like this, please subscribe. And
okay, enough of you. But was that not glorious? And that's why I did the show tonight. The dangerous dumpster fire that is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And now we realize, and I wanted to make everyone realize and understand, this is why she's dangerous, and this is why all of this has been happening. You see how it all fits together now? And doesn't it make you ask, is she anything more than a puppet? Are the tweets really hers? Is the script really hers? Is she fed her opinions and speeches at a trough? And that's why I asked you, or said to you, and all this in just 3 months.
Monsieur has been
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here at the SHR Media Studios, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. You want to contact me, you can find me at BZEP, at BZEP on Twitter, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Thanks to the Redcon 1 Media for simulcasting my show. Thanks to the SHR Media Network for just allowing me to sit in the damn chair in the first place. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And of course by Pratt & Whitney Engines, providing thrust you can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle 1 refueling team with whom I will be consorting. Definitely a mundo in less than an hour. And thank you, everybody, for listening live. Thanks for being in chat. Thanks for listening in podcast. Thanks to Big Sarge at Redcon 1. Thanks to the owners of SHR. Tomorrow night, Sackheads Against Tyranny. Be here. Aloha. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.